Well, thank you for joining How to Run a Law Firm, the 101 webinar. This is presented by Legal Back Office, and after the webinar, we will be distributing copies of the recording to anyone who's registered, so no worries if you weren't able to make it today. My name is Marcus Wilbers. I'm the president of Legal Back Office. I'm a practicing lawyer, an entrepreneur, and I have experience in business process outsourcing, employee benefits, employment law, and all of the above. And I am joined by our co-founder and CEO of Legal Back Office, Sara Stock. So Sara, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. As you mentioned, I'm the co-founder of Legal Back Office, a company that was born out of the necessity after I started my own law firm, Stock Legal, 11 years ago. Before that, I was an equity partner at a large regional law firm, but I came from a family of small business owners, and I really wanted to experience that for myself. So I founded Stock Legal and then discovered that I needed to have some way to efficiently provide the services that Stock Legal needed to actually run the firm as we were growing and scaling. And that's how LBO came into being, the short version at least.
The short version, right? The abridged version.
Right.
Um, well, I actually think that's a great place to start the discussion today. Our goal in having this webinar and writing the blog series that led up to this was to talk about some of the fundamental issues that lawyers are going to encounter as they venture out to practice on their own and start their own law firms or small to medium-sized law firms. And so, yeah, starting with your story, Sara, and what you encountered, what was it like to leave a big firm? What did you encounter that you anticipated? What did you not anticipate? And how did you kind of address those challenges as they came up?
Yeah, well, I should start by saying I never intended to build a law firm. When I left the big firm, it was primarily because I had a small core group of my own clients that I had originated. I had these three beautiful children, and I had an incredible passion for working with entrepreneurs and small to medium sized businesses. And I thought, this is a way to give myself a little bit more flexibility and freedom. I can set my own schedule. It'll allow me to be more present for my children, and maybe just have a better quality of life overall. And it turns out there's this huge gap in the market where small to mid-sized businesses need sophisticated legal counsel at a price that they can afford. And because we kind of cracked the nut at figuring that out at Stock Legal, we just kept growing and growing and growing. And all of that led me to be very unprepared to scale a law firm. And as I was in the thick of it, which really happened like 2016, 2017, 2018, I started looking for resources online because I thought that someone's written a book on this, like we're lawyers, like this is how we learn,
Got to
right?
be a manual somewhere, right?
Right, right. Turns out there wasn't back then. And so I feel like I probably made every mistake in the book that didn't exist, right? I made every mistake you possibly can in trying to figure out how to kind of cover that valley of death where you have enough revenue to, rent a really nice building, to have some great staff members, but not enough margin in that revenue to hire a full back office team. And so that was where the idea of LBO was really born out of, was that kind of valley of death between, 7 and 12 lawyers and the support that we needed to really, shine like a professional firm and also not have the lawyers spending a ton of their billable time doing administrative tasks.
Yeah, and I think some of that, or maybe all of it, applies to businesses in general, small
Oh,
to
yeah.
medium-sized businesses in general. We have our productive work, our core function, regardless of what, I mean, for a law firm, it's easy. It's practicing law, it's serving clients. And then you have all the things that you have to do to support that function,
Yeah.
right? Your core function, your non-core functions that,
Yeah.
and building that out is not why, I mean, no one gets into business, right, to run payroll or to do bookkeeping, right?
Right.
But those are necessary things, and
Yeah.
they end up kind of sucking time and money
Yeah.
from the business itself.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, the fascinating thing for me is that the need for a company like Legal Back Office doesn't go away once you hit 12 lawyers or 15 lawyers or 25 lawyers. As you're scaling, that gap in margin, as
Mhm.
compared to your revenue, you continue to hit that again and again as you're growing because, you're increasing your team of lawyers. You've got to bring on additional W-2 employees to support them. And those big salaries really eat into the margin at every kind of lockstep along the way of growth. And
Yeah.
so it's been fascinating to me at Stock Legal with 15 lawyers to know that, I mean, we still can't afford to hire even a fractional CFO. I mean, that would just be a poor use of our funds. And
Mhm.
so having those bookkeeping services from Legal Back Office and that oversight that comes with the work that LBO does for Stock Legal continues to be a really crucial point
Mhm.
as we grow. And then kind of the cherry on top, we've had this really cool experience at LBO in the last couple of months, 6, 8 now, I guess, with a large law firm that had us come in and write process for them. And so it was wonderful to see that there continues to be a place for
Yeah.
LBO and those outsourced services throughout the entire business cycle of a law firm.
Yeah, it's easy to see when you're just starting, like, well, we can't afford,
Yeah,
I need help with bookkeeping, right?
sure.
But I could hire someone to do bookkeeping, but what would they do the other 37 hours, and
Right.
so it's very easy to see it there. But your point's a good one, that as you grow, those opportunities are still going to be there, even if you can keep a full-time bookkeeper or 10 busy. That is a core function.
It is.
And then you have other things like process improvement, writing
Yes.
SOPs. How do we work more efficiently? How do we work better? Well, I guess 2 points. One, it doesn't make sense for your team that you have. They already have jobs that they're
Yeah.
committed to, so to take them off of that and to help look at process. And I think the other point is, like, what is it, like the beginner's mindset, or the I don't know what it's called, but the fresh eyes, looking at something with fresh eyes.
Shoshin, right? Isn't that the Japanese word?
That's right.
Shoshin.
That's right,
I
right.
love
The
that
the
word.
beginner's mind,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
looking at things fresh from an
Yeah.
outsider's perspective. Why do you do it that way?
Right.
What if we did it like this? So,
Yes.
and all of it is geared towards helping the business run, more efficiently and more profitably.
Yes, that is exactly right. And,
Mm.
when the business runs more efficiently and more profitably, the lawyers have more time for the clients, right?
Yep.
And, at the heart of what really makes a law firm great, it is the relationships that the lawyers build with their clients. And I've
Yeah.
been there where you're pulled in so many administrative
Yeah.
directions that, it's eating up 4 or 5 hours of your day some days. And
Hmm.
that just doesn't give you enough time for client care or client service, at least in the way that I want to engage, from a relational perspective.
And that's what I was going to say is, there may be enough hours in the day, theoretically, and there may not be enough hours in the day.
Right.
But then, when you're bogged down in these administrative things, what version of you is showing up to your
Yeah,
client? And that's the only thing that you as a lawyer can do. It is to practice law and care for your clients. So what
yeah,
version of you is showing up if you're
so
if you're
true.
constantly, focusing on these other things?
Yeah, no, that's so true. And it's so important. Even if you're not looking to scale your firm, being available for your clients and, being able to show up for them well is
Mm.
important, even just in maintaining the client base that you have. So,
Yeah.
I think there's an important place for outsourcing these back office services in, almost every size firm, wherever they are in their life cycle.
Yeah. One thing that you and we've worked with clients on, and I've done this in a, prior role as well, as strategic planning.
Yeah.
Um, and it's something that I think, depending on who you talk to, they either love it or hate it. There's not a whole lot of in between in my experience.
Fair.
They either see the value or they don't. But When you talk to clients about strategic planning, why do you think it's important, and how have you used it at Stock Legal?
Yeah, well, so I am obviously in the camp of this is a critical tool, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
fair warning, this is what you're gonna get. But the reason that I think that strategic planning is so critical, is that it is legitimately the thread that weaves together operations, financing, practice management, marketing, IT, recruiting, benefits. It is a tool that forces you to take at least one day every year, ideally in like September, October, November for the upcoming year, and intentionally think about, cast a vision for, and then build out the operational steps to move the firm in the direction that you, as the managing partner or the CEO and founder, can foresee it growing, right? And that can take 1,000 different looks, right? But without that time, you're missing this huge opportunity because you're just heads down and you're working, working,
Yeah.
working, 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 right? You don't lift your head up and make this plan. And I am a firm believer in, if absolutely nothing else comes out of a strategic plan, and this is not our recommended step, just to be clear, but if nothing else comes out of a strategic plan, and you, well, I'm going to show my age here and say, stick it in a drawer, right? And never look at it again. We don't do that anymore. We
Yeah.
say computer. But even if you just stick it in a drawer and never look at it again, it's up here, right? It is in the back of your mind. It's guiding your direction. It's guiding your decisions every day. And even just that step gives you the opportunity to be even more effective and even more efficient throughout the upcoming year. Our recommendation is, of course, to create accountability opportunities for all of the different steps in the strategic plan, either with LBO or with your firm's leadership team. I think that is incredibly important. Accountability is a must if you are set on achieving a goal. But like I said, even if you just stick it in that drawer, you as
Yeah.
the founder and managing partner are thinking about it. It's in your subconscious. It's guiding your decisions throughout the upcoming.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's also a chance to review what you've done the prior year, like how, the saying, what got you here won't get you where, won't take you forward or get you where you want to go.
Yeah,
Like look at what's worked, what hasn't worked, and pivot from that.
yeah,
You learn lessons along the way, and those
yeah,
can be incorporated into where you're going. Uh,
absolutely.
and I think it's really important if you have a key stakeholders. I mean, if you're a solo practice, like having a business coach or advisor or something like that, someone to help you question your assumptions, maybe ask
Yeah,
questions like, why did we do this? Why do we think
yeah,
this is going to be important? But if you're a small firm, having your partners there, or having, if you have a board or an advisory board or something like that,
yeah.
to just give a different perspective on the path that you're on, and where that path might take you.
Yeah. Well, and utilizing someone who's, seen a lot, right?
Yeah.
I can't say that we've seen it all, right? But we've seen a lot.
Yeah. We're not old enough yet. Yeah.
Not no, nowhere near old enough yet.
Yeah.
But we've seen a lot, right? We just had a call last week with one of our phenomenal solo practitioners, and she's in this place of, you know, kind of, do I stay or do I go, right?
Hmm.
Do I keep running my own practice, or, do I merge with another firm? Do I think about going of counsel? And I was so honored and grateful to have that conversation with her, because she felt like we had a close enough relationship that she could reach out to me and just
Hmm.
spitball on what are the
Yeah.
options, or what can help me make this decision, because that's part of it. We don't want to make those big decisions emotionally. We want to make them objectively based on data. And it doesn't matter how much business acumen you have, or even how much experience you have. There may be ways to look at data out there that you're just not thinking of. I mean,
Yeah.
LBO is kind of going through that right now with like building out this really cool capacity tool for
Capacity
our
chart.
team,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean, and we're looking at it in ways that I never even thought of because we brought in outside experts.
yep,
So for law
yeah.
firms to be able to use us as those outside experts just gives a perspective that, you may not, you as a law firm founder may not have been able to come up with on your own.
Yeah, I think the something I was thinking about as you were talking about that was prioritization and
Yeah,
like where do you spend time? I think that's a good takeaway from a strategic planning session where you get a lot of good ideas together and that environment and energizes me where people
yeah,
can provide their perspectives and hey, I never thought of it like that. What about this? But then you can kind of see, well, what does the business need first, second, third? Like if this is where we want to go, well, what has to happen,
yeah,
and in what order does it need to happen?
right.
Then if you can figure that out, then it's pretty easy to figure out, what goals should we have and where should we be spending our time.
Oh, yeah,
And that's that, getting away and doing it like off site would be great, or just dedicating a day to it so that you can get, work on the business, not in the business, like so that
yeah,
you can see it from a different perspective,
yeah,
instead of just head down, billing hours and
right.
churning it out.
Yeah. I talk a lot about how important it is to me personally as a business owner to be proactive instead of reactive. I want
Mhm.
to be in flow in running businesses. There's enough chaos that happens, right, that you can't control.
Yeah.
Where you can be proactive. It just puts you in a different, well, I mean, for me, it puts me in a different headspace, right? And I
Yeah.
can show up better for my people, my clients, my kids, my
Mhm.
family, my friends, the whole 9 yards. A strategic plan is a step in trying to figure that out, taking the time to step away and work on the business. We lawyers are so wrapped up in the billable hour, and I get
Yeah.
it, right? Like, it's tangible. I know, if I bill at this rate and I work this many hours, I make this much money. And I like that
Yeah.
certainty as well. Don't get me wrong. But I've seen time and time again that exponentially more revenue comes from taking the time to sit down and plan and then execute on that plan well. It's just really hard to quantify,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I've seen it again and again. So.
But in terms of like what types of clients to engage, what types of
Yeah.
service lines, or what types of practice areas to focus on, things like that,
Yeah,
those kind of insights can come from it.
100%. Even just really sitting down, like I don't mean to get into the weeds here, but one of the coolest things that I think we do for clients is we can take their financial reporting and create classes by practice area, and then
Yeah.
figure out how to allocate expenses across those different classes in a way that makes sense to the law firm.
Mhm.
And then really look at practice area by practice area, what's profitable, right?
Yeah.
What's your margin on each? Can you minimize expenses in certain areas? Should you be hiring more lawyers in certain
Yeah.
areas? That level of financial analysis is not, it's not hard, but until you can think about it that way and take that step, like it's just not, you
Yeah.
don't have that insight. I can say the same thing about marketing. If you're doing
Yeah.
digital marketing right now and you have, a strategy for LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, if you're not looking at your analytics, if you're not setting key
Hmm.
performance indicators for the kind of follower growth that you want to see on each of those platforms and you're not measuring it every month, well, what you're putting out might be completely ineffective, but you just don't
Yeah.
know until you measure it, right?
Right. It's funny. I had this very similar conversation yesterday with a group of entrepreneurs, different lines of the business yielding different, gross dollars and at different margins. And
Mhm.
the question was like, well, this business line is really just subsidizing this other one.
Right,
So then, okay, if that's true, what does the future look like? Does this other
yeah,
line look like it's going to grow? Does this having this other line give you some strategic advantage in the sense
right,
that it might diversify your services? Say the economy changes, which, who knows if that's going to happen, right? Like,
Happen tomorrow.
right, right. So would that help you, weather any storm? And so maybe that's an okay answer, or
Yeah.
maybe it's, well, if we don't think those things are true, then maybe you need to cut bait with this service line. But
Oh, yeah.
you're not going to know that in the day to day.
No. And yeah, strategically identifying what is a loss leader for your
Yes.
firm, but an acceptable one because it leads to so much more in all of the ways that you just touched on. I
Hmm.
mean, there's no way to do that when your head's down,
Yeah.
billing, billing,
Yeah.
billing, and then you're like, oh, I got to get invoices out. Okay, invoices out. And oh my God,
Yeah.
there's no money in the bank account. Oh, nobody's paid us. AR, phone calls, right?
Yeah.
If that's your
Yeah.
rat race every day, you don't have the ability to rise up above the fray and look at the bigger picture and be more strategic and intentional about what you're doing and what you're building. And one of the beautiful side effects of that, at least in my experience, is more ease, more flow, more proactivity
Yeah.
instead of that constant firefighting, exhausting,
Yeah.
rat race that you find yourself in. So
Yeah.
that flows from, strategic planning as a first step, and then, working through the process of figuring out how to be more intentional about
Mhm.
running your business.
And I think maybe to transition us a little bit, one of the other benefits I've seen come from strategic planning is to identify maybe gaps
Yeah,
in your business where, hey, we'd like to do this, but we don't have anyone with that skill set,
yeah,
uh, or we're not, we're here on this function, but we should be here, but we
right.
can't get there without adding capacity, and we don't have the money to add the capacity. So then
Right.
you have discussions about what's the best way to address those gaps. By do you bring on consultants? Do you bring on vendors? Work with
1099,
different
right?
vendors? Do you
Yeah,
do you, do you actually hire employees to fill that role? And
yeah,
I wonder if you could, talk a little bit about how you've addressed that at Stock Legal. Obviously, legal back office is a part of that, but
right.
how do you identify those gaps, and then how do you make the decision on, is this someone that I should hire? Should I hire for this role? Should I do project-based consulting for this role? Should
Right.
I partner with a vendor in an ongoing relationship?
Yeah, and I'm going to give you some specific examples, but I'm going to
Yeah.
start kind of 30,000 foot. So, we embarked on trying to write this blog series, How to Run a Law Firm, and we called it the 101 version, not to, talk down to anyone. We called it the 101 version because they don't teach you how to run a law firm in law school, right? No one teaches you these business principles. And even with an MBA, there is so much that I didn't know going into starting my own practice. And so, the first blog series, I'm sorry, the first blog post in the blog series really just tries to paint the big picture of, if you are running a business, these are all of the areas that you need to touch, right? And, one of those areas is recruiting. How do you grow when you have a need that that needs to be addressed, that needs to be filled, but you can't afford to bring that person in, right? You can't
Mhm.
afford to pay that salary. So Stock Legal grew initially by working with 1099s primarily. So these are independent contractors. They were all, for the most part, women who had found big firm life incompatible with having a family. So stay-at-home moms that were juggling a couple of different gigs, wanted to keep their, a foot in the game because they hoped to come back one day. And the beauty of that is they could say yes or no to any of the projects that we had for them. And when they did say yes, they only got paid for the hours that they billed. And so it allowed me to really cover my expenses because I wasn't bringing on us, I wasn't committing to this huge salary. And it allowed us to kind of grow incrementally
Mm.
until we got to a place where, we either were offering W-2 positions or we were, going out and officially trying to hire a full-time lawyer. So I think that, from a recruiting perspective was a really great move. And we still have a few 1099s at Stock Legal because, people are engaged in other businesses, but they have, a certain amount of time that they want to devote to still practicing law. All of those same rules apply. They get to say yes or no to any project. They bring their own tools, what have you. But it kind of helps us fill a gap as the firm is growing. And that same concept applies to vendors. If you're thinking about, gosh, the firm is big enough where I probably need a full-time bookkeeper, a full-time person to invoice and run AR. I probably need, someone in marketing, and we all need managed IT these days, right? Well, I know I said full-time for the first two, but I just meant we need
Yeah,
someone to do this work.
right.
If you think about the salaries, the W-2 salaries that you would pay for those positions, I mean, you'd be in the
That's
hundreds.
a quick.
Right, hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands of dollars, right? And
Mm.
you don't really need someone 40, 45 hours a week. So, could you create part-time positions? Yes, maybe. What's the quality that you'll really get if you're only
Yeah.
looking for someone part-time? Being able to outsource that to a vendor who has expertise in these very specific areas. I mean, that was huge. At Stock Legal,
Mhm.
we had hundreds of thousands of dollars in W-2 expenses and brought it down to about a sixth of what we were paying in W-2
Wow.
expenses by outsourcing that. I mean, it's just a crucial step in the
Yeah.
financial success of the firm.
A couple things stood out to me there, like the role, defining the role as being really important, and not just defining it from your firm's perspective. We need help with these projects. Defining it from the perspective, contractor or employee's perspective.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what you might get out of it. Uh,
Yeah.
it's almost like selling to employees.
Yeah.
Uh, hey, you don't want to work, 80 hours a week and you want to spend time with your family. We're cool with that.
Yeah.
We'll pay you for what you work. Tell
Yeah.
us when you want to work. And hey, if you decide in a year you want to go do something else, that's cool too. We can make it
Yeah.
work. And the other thing was just having an understanding of how you're going to find those people, right?
Ah,
Um, what we see a lot with small to medium sized firms is you have one, two, three people who are jacks of all trades,
right.
and what is the I think it's a Shakespeare saying, "Jack of all trades, master of none." But what's interesting is if you finish that, it's sometimes better than a master of one, or is oftentimes
Right.
better than a master of one. But
Yeah.
the point is that if you're asking someone, hey, we have, or if you're identifying, I need someone to answer phones, bill my clients, keep my books, manage our computers. What do you think the odds are that you're going to find someone that can do all of those things proficiently? Setting aside the fact that like the volume may be too much for any one person to handle, just
Yeah.
just from a knowledge basis, are they going to be
That's
able
like
to do
that
them
would be
well?
a unicorn, right?
Right. And how lucky do you think you feel going to try and find a unicorn?
Right.
You know,
What are the odds? Say,
right. And then say you find them. How long do you think you're going to be able to hang on to them?
yeah,
Right? Or how expensive will it be to hang on to them?
right.
Right? Because then you've just made one person very indispensable in
Yeah,
your
like
business
critical failure points for the
under
entire firm.
for a number of different key key roles for your organization. I mean, one person responsible for all of that. Yeah.
Terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that gave me like I felt it here. I'm like, that gave me so much anxiety just thinking about
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, it all kind of, boils down to it is really challenging to scale a law firm, right? It's really challenging to scale any business. And trying to de-risk that scaling process as much as possible is a good
yeah,
move. Trying to minimize your expenses as much as possible. Even if I mean, sure, put all of that money that you're saving in your own pocket if that's your goal, but also, think about all of the margin that you've created to help the firm grow. If you're not putting that all into your own pocket, just improving what you already do, better offices, better technology. There's more money
right.
available, liquidity available for that. So,
Right, and and then I start to think about opportunity cost. You
yeah,
know, when you're saving money on one part of the business, where is that money better spent? You
yeah,
know, what could you do with it? Like marketing is a great example. Like
yeah.
if we invest in marketing, what will we yield in terms of new business? Can we handle that new business?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the beautiful circle of more work comes in. We're all really busy. Okay, wait, we got to hire someone. Okay, wait, now we need to market for more
Right.
work, right? So, yeah,
Yeah. So I want to be conscious of our time here.
yeah,
But maybe this is a good segue into, where we spend the money, your financial operations. We've mentioned bookkeeping, a few times. I know you and I have worked with firms that, initially when they come to us, it's like, well, I don't really know, you know, if we're doing well or not. I know I have money in the bank, but I don't know, if that number should be higher, lower, or we're not accounting for things. So how,
right.
um, I guess, what do you recommend there if someone has very little grasp on what, like the firm's performance financially and how it's doing? How would you advise them to kind of get a handle on it?
Yeah. I mean, I would just tell the story to start of the drastic change that we've seen at Stock Legal once we've started managing to our financial reporting, you know? Um, being able to see and very clearly understand not only month to month comparisons, but year to year comparisons by month,
Mhm.
both in terms of revenue, expenses, net income, looking at each of the expenses as a percentage of revenue. And as I mentioned earlier, being able to create classes for all of the different practice areas has given me so much insight into how to better run this business. It's given me so much insight into what our key performance indicators should be as a firm. What are our leading indicators? What are our lagging indicators? Knowing and understanding that has really empowered me with so much information to be able to grow and scale the firm and make it more efficient so that there is more excess net cash flow available for better benefits, for better equipment, just better compensation packages overall, which leads to better lawyers who stay longer, who provide better
Yeah,
continuity and quality of service to our clients. I mean, the whole thing just waterfalls down from there. But it all started with, really building out my profit and loss statement and balance sheet in a set of management reports that not only do I look at it every month, but my other partners now at Stock Legal look at every month. And we meet as a leadership team with our director of operations every month to go over them in detail. It helps us decide, are we ready to hire someone, right?
yeah,
I mean, just so much comes from it.
yeah. I think it also helps you get out of the, um, maybe the battle of narratives.
Yeah,
If you have partners,
yes.
looking at, okay, these are the metrics that we're going to look at, and you know, they can be very basic. What's our net income, right?
Sure.
What are our, billable hours, our utilization, profitability by practice area. But then you're talking about real data instead of people's perception of what is going on. And I know in, you know, prior business, That was really critical. From a customer perspective, even, customers, the particular challenge we had was customers saying, well, no one's getting back to me on time. Okay.
Mm,
Well, we started to measure that.
yeah.
We started to measure that, and then I could tell them proactively, like, hey, here's what we've got as our response time in 9 hours, 6 hours, 4 hours. What are you seeing? Or does that sound right to you? But it was funny how those narratives kind of stopped when we started measuring it. It was a way for us to hold our teams accountable to where we wanted to be, and a way for us to tell a story with data.
Yeah, I talk a lot about the difference between I feel like this is what's happening
Yeah.
versus let me present to you objective data on what's happening.
Hmm.
I feel, well, feelings are very important. Those statements lead to conflict, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody feels differently. Everybody's telling themselves a different story. Everybody's casting a different narrative, and all to make themselves look the best that they possibly can
Hmm.
especially if there's potential conflict on the horizon, right? Um, Data levels that field, right?
Yeah.
It is just what is, and there's no judgment. Instead, it's how can we take action based on that data to improve our situation, right? That,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
talk about having more effective conversations. I mean, exponentially more effective when you're presenting data.
Yeah, yeah, and I was thinking that too, that if you're a law firm owner, getting into where you're measuring things, not just in the financial realm, but
Yeah.
across the board,
Mhm.
that can be scary,
Yeah.
because you don't know what you're going to
Yeah.
find. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think it's the difference between just being a lawyer, but just practicing law and owning and running a business,
Yeah.
knowing the metrics, right?
Yeah. It's
And
a
mhm.
it's a little bit like, I feel like something's wrong with me, but if I go to the doctor might tell me something scary, right? So I'm gonna
Yeah,
going to the doctor because I don't want to hear the scary thing versus I
yeah,
feel like something's wrong with me. I'm going to go to the doctor right away because I want to know so that I can take proactive steps to fix whatever is wrong, right? But
yeah.
really astute
That
to
one hits close to home.
tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But it really is incredibly important. Like it's really astute of you to point out that fear.
Hmm.
It is a big deal to,
Yeah,
take a step in uncovering, how is the firm really running? Not just how do I feel like the firm is really running. But, if you can work through that fear, getting to a place where you can make so many better
right,
decisions, how to grow the firm and how to grow your practice area and how to grow your team. I mean,
right,
pay off in dividends, right?
right. It's a real mindset shift.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Important. Important. And so yeah, that the power of regular bookkeeping and financial reporting, I would put in the top two or three uh most important things to me as a law firm owner.
yeah, yeah. We did get a question in about what marketing strategies you would recommend, or what are most effective for law firms,
Yeah.
in terms of attracting and retaining clients.
Yeah, that's always a fun one because it is so dependent upon your practice area.
Yeah,
What I mean by that is, if you are looking for people as clients, social
as
media
opposed to
as
businesses.
as opposed to companies, right? If
Yeah,
you're looking for people as clients, social media is a great place to find them. Google ads, Facebook ads, really building out a strong Facebook or Instagram presence, TikTok even. I know it seems weird, but uh,
yeah,
all the kids are on TikTok these days.
and
So
it's still around,
it's
right?
still
As far as
around
I
right
know.
now,
Yeah,
at least
yeah.
as of, April 18th, 2025. It's still so, you're really marketing to where the people are. If your potential clients are businesses, those businesses are on LinkedIn, right? And so there is a great way to really push out digital marketing through LinkedIn, LinkedIn ads, writing articles, what have you, and demonstrating all of that through LinkedIn. I believe that no matter what kind of client you're looking for, demonstrating your expertise is a really important marketing tool. And you can do that through writing really simple blogs. They don't have
Mhm.
to, they're not legal journal articles. They are
Yeah,
simple
please
blogs,
no.
right?
Yeah.
Simple blogs using short sentences and short paragraphs to demonstrate your expertise. And then optimizing those blogs for SEO because Google loves blogging, right? Google loves all of the tags that go with those blogs. And if they're optimized for SEO purposes, it's going to draw traffic directly to your website, which means that you've got to have a great website, right? You've got to have a website that is approachable, that is understandable, that has calls to action repeatedly throughout the website, that empowers clients to take a step, fill out a form, try to meet with a lawyer. And then, gosh, there are so many tools available that you can plug into that will create a set of automated messages or actions that happen once somebody fills out one of those CTA forms. So, that's a long-winded way of saying, depending on your practice area,
Mhm.
there are a dozen different paths for a marketing plan that can be created. It really just depends on who you're looking for and how you're trying to.
Yeah. I think that's really the key point for me too, is knowing who your customer is, knowing who your ideal customer profile is,
Yeah,
and who they are and what they do and how are they going to find you.
yeah,
So really trying to see things from their eyes and their perspective. And a good way to start with that is, what are the clients that you have now?
yeah.
How did they find you? Is that repeatable or not? And if they're not the right clients, if you're wanting to get into something new, like trying to build a very specific profile about those ideal clients.
I love that you brought that up, Marcus, because I can genuinely say that this is the first time I've had this conversation. And I haven't started with, 20 years ago, we did a lot of in-person business development and we got a lot of
Yeah,
in-person personal referrals. I think that just says something about where we're at in the world today that I didn't default
yeah,
to talking about that. But
yeah,
I would be remiss not to mention it because personal referrals or referrals from really great referral sources I mean, that is definitely still a way that a lot of lawyers find new clients,
yeah.
right? And I'm not suggesting that that is a bad way or, we shouldn't put time and energy into it.
Mm.
What I am saying though is that your referral sources need to remember you. And how do they remember you? They remember you by, getting a monthly newsletter, maybe if that's something that your firm does, or by coming across an article that you wrote because they're on your email list, right? Or coming across your LinkedIn profile because you've written a post about something that's really important to you, or if people are your referral sources instead of companies or other people in business, coming across a Facebook ad. The most recent research says that humans these days need to hear about you and know about you 7 different times before they trust you enough to reach
Yeah,
out to you, right?
yeah,
So it's not so much anymore that John Smith, the CPA, says, you know what, you got this business problem, you need to talk to Sara Stock at Stock Legal. If, John Smith has never heard of Stock Legal before, he may be
yeah,
right. He may be reluctant to reach out, but if he's, seen something on LinkedIn and come across us on Facebook or does a
yeah,
search and sees that we have this phenomenal website, all of those things are building
yeah.
before that first conversation.
Well, and I'm just thinking too, you and I were at an event this week with other entrepreneurs, and every time I would meet someone, partly because, my memory of names is a little suspect, but every time I would meet someone, I would say, "Oh, I'm going to send you a LinkedIn request."
Yep.
So then I have it,
Yep.
and And then as I scroll through LinkedIn, as I'll do on a daily basis, I'll see people post or like things or share things. Oh yeah, I haven't talked to Paul in years. I'm going to reach
Right.
out to him and see if we can get coffee or something. I don't
Yeah.
really have a, I'm not going to hire him necessarily, but it keeps you, I guess, front of
Fun.
mind. So, which
It
is to your
does.
point, like it's not just the referral,
Yeah.
it's the being around those areas where they're going to keep bumping into you.
Yeah. And all of that we just described takes time, right?
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
time is opportunity cost to every lawyer. And that's why Legal Back Office has marketing services that we provide because, we can push that out more efficiently. We can push that
mhm,
out in a way that is authentic to your brand, authentic to your firm, authentic to your voice. But it takes that time burden off of you because I can just see people watching this or listening to this and saying, I'm already billing 50 hours a week. Like, when am I
yeah,
be able to
yeah,
do any of this, right?
yeah,
I get it. I really do. And being able to outsource that in a way that is authentic to you is incredibly important. So,
yeah. And I guess the other thing I'll share on this is something that was difficult for me at first, which is to just put yourself out there a little bit.
yeah,
It's awkward. It
right.
can be, I guess, depending on your personality. It was a little awkward for me to talk about myself, talk about what do I
Yeah.
know, what skills do I have, what are my thoughts on something, to post on LinkedIn or what to share an experience on LinkedIn. It's a little bit of being vulnerable,
Yeah.
and that can feel really weird.
Yeah.
Um, but it also, I think, is authentic.
Oh, yeah.
If you share about yourself, I guess it depends on what's your voice and style and things. But if you're just sharing your opinion on things, not like, I'm right, you're wrong. This is I'm the best at everything I do. If you're being authentic about what you're sharing, I think people can sense that.
Yeah.
And it feels a little vulnerable, but it also is what, in my experience, attracts people to you. And people will reach out and say, hey, I'm glad you shared that. Like I thought the same thing, but haven't shared it.
Yeah, no, it really does bring people to you. And if you
Mhm.
lead with vulnerability,
Mhm.
it encourages others to be vulnerable with
Yeah.
you. And that's how relationship is formed.
Hmm.
That's so critical. I'm so glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
it's really important. I used to be terrified of making a mistake and doing it in any public way. I mean, I thought, oh, that's it. I will lose all credibility, right? You know
Yeah.
man, we are all human. We
Yeah.
all make mistakes,
Yeah.
right? And,
Yeah.
when you talk about your mistakes, it allows people to really connect with you because they're like, I made that mistake too, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
or like, please let me help you not make this mistake, right? Like,
Yeah.
let me share my
Learn
experience,
from my
right?
experience.
So
Yeah.
that you can skip that part because it was not any fun, right?
Right. Right.
But yeah, all the basis of really strong relationships that ultimately lead to really great client relationships for lawyers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Sarah, I think we are coming up on time.
Time
I
flies when we're having fun. How's that
know.
possible? Right? I
Yeah.
mean, great.
I mean, obviously, this is something that we're just starting to do with Legal Back Office. These webinars is something we'd love to continue to do. We'd love to hear from our clients and prospects about topics, questions, content they'd love, for us to cover. So, please feel free to
Absolutely.
reach out to either Sarah or myself and give us those ideas for things to chat about.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're writing this blog series because it's what I wish someone would have taught me before I started my firm or as I was growing my firm. And so right now our plan is to just kind of follow along the blog series and
Mhm.
talk about each of the specific business areas going forward. But if people want to hear about other
Yeah.
things, I would rather talk about the things people want to hear about than what I would have wanted to hear about, 12 years ago. So
Yeah.
please, that'd
Yeah.
be phenomenal to get some feedback on this. It really would. I welcome it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sarah, for your
Oh my
time.
gosh, thank you, Marcus. This was so much fun. We could
Yeah.
all day long. So
Yeah. So we'll pick a date in the future and send out invites for that and would love to do this again soon.
awesome. All right. Well,
Right.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye.